Well, hey, this is part 2 of the Fender Stratocaster that we're building. This review, as I've said in version 1, or video 1, comprises of a multitude of micro reviews along the way. As you can see with the guitar, it's coming along very nicely. And we've got on the back the electronics to finish off and things like that. And we're going to be making a lot of choices about that as we go. So it's worth watching, guys. It's a long video, remember that. But these micro reviews will show you things that probably you didn't know or didn't know how to do, or all the things that allow you to end up making a guitar like this. And for nothing like the sort of money that you would otherwise pay. Now further back down there, you will have seen a black screen with a load of micro reviews on with the times. But of course, in between the micro reviews, we're building this guitar, so you're going to end up seeing everything I do, including the stuff that I didn't show you on the other videos, things like that. And the micro reviews will help you to arrive at a guitar like this. And even if you're not going to build the guitar, there are lots and lots of different things on this video, this second video, that would help you, maybe even with your own guitar rather than building one. So it's not a wasted effort in watching this. As I said, a long video, but yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, it's all coming up now. Oh, by the way, there might be a video 3 or there might not, just depends how long this goes on for. I've got a lot of things to cover. Well, here I am, close up and personal. Actually, before we fit these, yeah, we've got one more thing to do with the guitar, and it's a very simple thing to do. Just take a little piece of masking tape and just put it across the bottom inside there. So we're not going to get any shorts, and maybe a little run across this side, you know, where those two wires could possibly touch at some stage. So just across the bottom and across this inner edge on all three. And that will just stop any aggravation with shorting out and things like that, because it is copper and it does, you know, it does short things out. So I'm going to go and do that now, and I'll let you have a quick peek before we slap that pickup in. And here's a quick shot of the sort of finished thing. You don't want that sticking over the top too much. Just keep it down underneath. It's all good. And away you go. And don't forget to poke the holes through so you can put the wires in. That's about it for them. You won't get any shorts or anything there now. It's all good. So I'm going to go and slip this pickup into place, this one here. And then we'll come back and have a look at the drilling side of things. Now if you look very carefully, I've taken a tie wrap and stuck it on the end of the cable with a bit of masking tape and just push that through the hole. And that'll get the cables going through nice and easily. If you try and do it any other way, it could be a problem. I mean, this is a hollow body, so it's got a bigger hole than normal, but it's still a problem. So if you do get any trouble, take a tie wrap and just do what I did. It's all very easy then. And there's a quick shot with the pickup just sort of sitting in place. It's nothing particularly dynamic at the moment, but it will be once we get a bit further with it. We'll be putting the 2 screws in. But I'm going to go and fit the other 2 as well, and then we can do everything in one go. And remember, as you pull them wires through on the back, mark up which pickup they are, won't you? Because if you don't, you can have a bit of fun later on messing around. Well, I've got the pickups fitted in place. I haven't screwed them in yet because we're going to show you how to do the first one and then wait and figure out how to do the other 2 because it's the same. Some people, by the way, might say, oh, why have you got white pickup covers and black dots on the neck? Things like that. Well, I can have anything I want because I'm building it. So if I want white dots, I can have them. And if I want black covers, I can have them. You can even get pink ones and green ones. But I don't like pink and green pickup covers, do you? Of course you don't. So, yeah, it's all looking pretty easy, this is. I mean, there's not really much to them. They don't go far out of place when you're putting them in and putting the screws in, shall I say. The only thing you've got to look at is just to make sure that you keep these pretty much lined up both sides. And you can see that, actually. You don't need any rulers and things like that if you don't really want to do that. You can just see it by looking. You've got 2 reference points here, and you can look down there. Or you could even run a string down just to line it up if you really want to. But I've done them before, and I've never bothered doing any of that, and they've always been absolutely fine. So you need to get the right drill, obviously, and things like that, otherwise you're going to have a problem. You don't want it skating off over here. And you don't want the drill to be too big. You don't want the drill to be too long or too wide. If it's too wide, the screws will flop around. And if it's too long, it'll cock up the wiring you've just done, and then you're going to have to be, you'll have a right problem. So take your time and, let's go from there. I just want to talk one more thing about these just before we fit them. Well, it's all about screws. And we've talked about screws earlier in the video and getting the right screws and so on. Now, these surrounds do come with screws. But I've used these before. And what you find, I can't easily show you this, but just trust me, this exists. This problem exists. If you look at the head of the screw, sometimes they sort of punched out on a machine. And sometimes this, where the screwdriver goes, it isn't very good. In fact, it's awful. So by using these screws that they come with, often, I'm not saying in this case, is or isn't, it can be trouble. These 6 do look okay, but just as a matter of precaution, I have a whole pile of fender screws that are exactly the right size. And the great thing about these screws is every one of them has an absolutely perfectly formed head. Now the thing is, as I said, if you get screws that aren't like that, it's going to look bad, and you'll buy them and you'll think they'll be okay, and you'll start to put them in, then they round off, or they this or they that. They do everything except what they should do, and this is again another reason for buying parts that are absolutely correct. If you buy the fender parts, they'll be correct. If you don't buy the fender parts, well, it's hit and miss. It's a bit like buying a Chinese guitar. It's all hit and miss. Will it work or won't it work? Will the neck fit or won't it fit? Well, as I said, something in my eye. Oh, it's my eyeball. As I said, you get the right bits and it just goes together. It sails together. And us regular guitarists, non-luthier type, well, that's what we want, isn't it? Nice and simple. Then we can play for the rest of our lives on this thing, or on the one you make, and it's all going to be absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to screw these 2 in now, and then I'll screw the others in off camera, because once you've seen one done, you've seen them all. And then we'll have a whip round the back. It's all beginning to come together, isn't it? We're nearly up to the wiring next. That's going to be good. What can I say? Let's go have a look. Let's get all these screws as they should be. In a way, it's another mini review, because people don't tell you the aggravation, do they? I do. One of the things I just do want to show you is I use one of these type of things, and this is, I think it's 2mm. Whether it's the right size for the screws is another story, but one thing I do know is it isn't too small and it isn't too big. So it's probably the right size, And one thing I always do is put a bit of masking tape on with just enough depth for where you want to go. You don't want it too deep into that body. Well, here's what I do when I'm fitting one of these. You'll notice that the pickup doesn't go side to side really much at all. It goes backwards and forwards a little bit. So I like to have it away from there, and then you can sort of line up accordingly. I would say that's about right there. If you look very carefully, it's pretty much straight on the neck, that is. So all you need to do is to hold your pickup and just carefully drill that small hole right in the centre, just as deep as we said with the marking. That's one done. What I would say to you then make sure you got the bits out and screw this one in first, or at least partially screw it in, and you'll see that that will all go together pretty nice once we get going. If you leave it loose, you've just got that bit where you can just align things up. If you need to, that is. Mine's fine there. I'm just going to drill the other one very carefully. Just in exactly the same way. Don't get it wrong, will you? And that's about it. Make sure you've got no bits underneath, and take your second screw, very carefully fit that one. Make sure the screw is straight when you're screwing it in, and it should all be good. That, my friends, is it. And there's a real quick shot of them all screwed in really well. There now, that wasn't too bad, was it? Was it? You did get yours right, didn't you? I hope you did, because it's not too easy to fix this if you get this sort of wrong. And these are all fitted really nicely. Well, now we've got that little bit on top done, we could whiz round the back and look at all these wires dangling out. That could be like a bit of a plan. We could start fitting all the electronics. Yeah, or we could fit the bridge. Yeah, that could be a plan. You could mount that in place, and all gets easier a bit later then. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll look at the wires. I think we'll do the bridge, because there's a fair bit to do on the bridge as well. I just want to show you some of that. Yeah. Okay, so let me go and get the bridge, which is the next micro review with a couple of things that go on it. And yeah, we'll go from there, because that's an interesting thing too. Bridges make a lot of difference, and on this one I didn't opt for the 6 screw thing like I normally have, or the Super V or any of the others that I've tried out. I've gone for the regular bridge. Well, I just thought I should. Oh my God, Tony, what have you got there? Well, I've got, you guessed it, it's a Fender bridge, and I've got something else here that we can look at in a minute, but let's look at the bridge first, because that's the first port of call. Yeah, it's a Fender bridge, and it's part number 0992050200. What's different about it? I say it's different. They're actually quite hard to get, this one. It's the gold one, and they really are quite difficult to get hold of. In fact, I wouldn't believe how hard it is to get hold of one of them. And yeah, you get a gold arm as well, which is quite nice. What else is in here? Oh yeah, springs and end plate. And this bag of bits. Well, get rid of this. So we've got the bag of bits, we've got the springs, we've got the arm, we've got the unit itself. And this particular unit has moved on since the 6 screw days. This is a dual pivot. And one of the things about the dual pivot, when I was buying this body from Warmouth, they said, "Oh, mail in your inserts." And I didn't mail them in, because it's the other side of the world. Literally, it's just ridiculous. 6,000 miles away. So I said, "Well, have you got any?" And he said, "Yeah, we got a few here." So they fitted them, and they fitted like this part here is the brass part. Now, there's nothing wrong in what they did. In fact, it says on here, Mckenzie 197491 9/11. That's supposed to be 11th of the 9th. Yeah, it must be. And there are the 2 posts. There's only one problem. Let's get these others out. Take them all out and have a quick look. And it's very easy to see, even though I haven't bothered to pull them out, that these are gold. and those aren't. And one of the things about Warmouth that I wanted to tell you is that Warmouth don't supply and cannot supply, from what they tell me, a gold one of these two fulcrum point Fender Tremolo units. So when they fit the inserts are all brass off all of them. They're all the same, which is really good because I've got the gold bits that I can just screw in there, hopefully. Yeah, there they go. I can just screw the gold bits in and you'd never know. So the body inserts are the bits that you want if you're doing a gold job. If you're not doing a gold job, nothing matters. But in any case, they are Fender parts. Once again, we're coming back to this Fender parts thing, and I know it's going to work even before I get here. However, having said that, I've seen this bridge, and yeah, they've sort of cut away at the back, if you can see that, on this block from where it used to be. It's been shaved off. Well, actually, it used to be about that thin all the way up. They've sort of made it fatter. And strangely enough, this is where it takes me on to the next micro review, even though that micro review there isn't complete. Trust me, it's all part of the same thing. What I have here is another block. Oh my God, this one's heavy. This is a Callahan block, and rumour has it that it can fit that. Well, it might or it might not. We'll have to take a look. But you also get a Callahan type of arm, which is a bit different. You can see, first of all, that the Callahan arm is deeper, because this thing's got this insert in here that will stop the arm from dangling around. You know that problem, don't you, what you get on Strats? It's all over the bloody place. And even on the new one, I believe that's just as bad. So they never updated that. So I thought the Callahan block, steel block, could be a good addition. The only problem is that's steel and this is gold. Well, we'll see later what works and what doesn't. So that's why I bought the Callahan block, to make this one a bit fatter, and it should really make it a bit fatter. Now the thing is, to fit this block on here, you've got to take all these things off at the front. That's not too much of a problem if you are okay with that. You just basically screw them off. I'd screw them off, keep them in order and put them back later. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Oh, you're there. Okay, well you can see I've taken all the things off. The string, whatever they call them. I don't even care what they call them, do you? Anyway, they're off. And if you look at this block, and you look at that block, you can see there's 3 screws there, and there's 3 screws here. And let's hope these gold screws fit in that one, because it won't look too good else. Well, you probably wouldn't notice actually, but I'm going to take them off now, and we'll have a look a bit closer. Okay, well here we are down at the business end. I've already taken 2 screws out, so let's slip the 3rd one off. And you end up with like, well, you'll see. You end up with like a plate and a back piece, which is exactly what we want. And if you look at the back piece of that, it looks sort of similar. Yeah, it's very similar. Let's hope it fits. So, take the screws out of this one. Oops, a bit tight. And these should all be compatible. I know they will, because it's all built to a standard. I'm going to slide that one to there and slide this one over here and go and get one of these screws. Hopefully fit it in there. Bear with me, it's a bit finicky. Yeah, it's very finicky. Let's get that going. There you go. So there's one sort of in place. Let's put the others in place. Tighten them up. Really tight you want them. Now you've got this big fat block where the other one was carved away. Now it might reduce the uplift slightly, but then again it might not, because this one goes back actually quite a fair way, as the fender one may or may not on the body. So what you've now got is this Tremolo block assembly, yeah, all very well done, with the 3 screws, and we're ready to put these saddles back. Remember them. Now what I did do when I pulled these off, I put them all over there and they're all in order. So I'm just going to go and fit these back in. They're all pretty boring to do, and we'll go from there. I'll show you how to do the first one now. Let me just screw this off. Some of them are not that great when they come off. Put the little spring on, and you'll see that this is offset. You see that on the thread? So just start it off. Let's get it going. And then you can sort of magically screw them in. I wouldn't call it rocket science, would you? Now there is a way of setting these up so it saves a lot of time later, but I'm just going to leave that as it is for now, just screwed in like so, as I will on all the others, and I'll be back in a second when I've done them all. Okay, well, I've screwed them back. Now, there's another little tip here. If ever you've got to pull these off, what I said to you is that, as I pulled them off, I put them over there on the sort of bench in order. And the reason I did that is sometimes you'll see on these screws, as indeed is this case, if you notice those 2 screws there, let's turn it around, maybe that's better. Those 2 screws there are shorter than those 2 screws there, and so on, and these ones at the end are short again, if you see my point. So by keeping them in order, you put them back just as Fender intended. Now there is more to these screws, which we might come back to later on if we find it necessary that we need to. But that's the screws for now. And as I said, we'll come back to them if we need to. Now we've got the thing about the arm. I've got the regular Fender arm here. I don't know whether this will fit. Let's just see if it does. Yeah, it does fit. And it fits pretty well. Yeah, it's really tight. So I could use the original one, this one, and not the Callahan one. Or I could use the Callahan one, which sticks out a little bit further. I think I'll stick with the original myself, because I want to keep it as original as I can. But remember that inside there's been upgraded, so it's a nylon ferrule, and or ferrule, or ferret, if you will. Anyway, either way, which way you look at it, you're not going to get that clunking around and the thing dropping all over the place. So that was one of the reasons for this upgrade. And the other one is that this adds mass to the tremolo, and they appear to work better, some people say. Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? Okay, there's one last thing I wanted to talk about with a tremolo. In fact, any of the tremolos. If you noticed, when this arrived, and you can notice now, because I've put it back roughly how it was, you see these 3 here, they're sort of down here like so. And then these 3 are still at an angle, but they're slightly higher. Can you see that? So you've got 3 angled, and 3 others angled. You've got 3 others angled. So think on like that set, and think on like this set. And I've generally noticed that when you get these things, that they're all like that. And usually, when you've done the intonation and all the rest of it, they usually end up looking something like that. Those 3, then these 3. It's just worth noting, because if you're screwing them all off, you might as well put them somewhere in place when for when you do get to that later on. I just thought I'd mention that, because once again, there's not that many people that talk about that, do they? Oh, and the last thing on the Callahan, as opposed to the standard Fender steel block, is that these 3 screws are exactly the same on both, except obviously on that one they were gold and on this one they're not. Just in case you need to know. And just while we're on the subject of this Callahan block, this steel block and tremolo arm, do bear in mind that these Callahan blocks, by the time they're in England, which is where I bought this one from, I bought it from Charles Guitars, PO Box whatever, London N20QZ, sales at Charles Guitars Co UK. He charged me £56 for that block, which is about $75. Yeah, and they charged the arm extra, which was another 15 quid on top. So you end up with £71 or about $95 for that thing, plus £4.50 shipping. So it's not a cheap option, and you've really got to want to be able to do that. Yeah, you've got to really want to do it, because otherwise there's no point. Will it improve the guitar? Let's hope it does. It's improved the tremolo, if nothing else, but it's added another, £90 to the build. Be careful. Back to the original tremolo, remember that? I just wanted to show you the other things that you get in the kit when you buy the real kit from Fender. You get, actually you get 2 string trees and 2 screws, all very nice if you can see that. Doesn't matter if you can't, because I'm not going to use them anyway, because I've got tuners that get away without them. It also gives you one of them tiny little springs for in the bottom down here, which is quite nice. That's appreciative, because you always one of them, you're going to know about it. Faff around for hours. You get 2 of the inserts, which again I've already got inserted, but I do get the 2 gold ones, which you're not going to be able to buy any other place, I don't think, not the gold ones. And you get the 2 screws for the back, for the claw. You get 3 springs, and you get a little Allen key for something. Oh, it's for adjusting them. Yeah, so you get a white bit as well. I suppose I could use the white one, or I've got a cream one, or whatever you want. You can have a black and white one if you want. You can have anything you like. But that's what you get in the kit. Of course, you get the arm as well. That's the genuine Fender kit. So there's a few parts there I'm not going to use. You might. In all, it's not bad value for money, if a little bit expensive in the UK, if you can find one. Yeah, we got actually quite a lot of little mini reviews as we continue with the build, and I think that's a really great idea, and not one I've seen anywhere else. So yeah, it's all going to be good, this is, I think. So what I'm going to do is get out this tremolo and its components, and let's go and fit the tremolo, the claw that is, and its 2 screws, and then we can fit the tremolo arm on and put these screws on so it stays in place. And you want something just to protect the body while there's no strings on it, things like that, which I'm going to show you anyway. So it's all good. Yeah, hold on a minute. Let's flip the guitar over and take a look. Yeah, one of the great things about a Warmoth body is you haven't got to faff around too much, because they've done a lot of the work, or nearly all the work for you. You just have to be a little bit careful. Now, the fact is, when you go fitting one of these claws, you might see it up there somewhere. I don't know. You've probably seen them before. They fit in like so, in the back. And yeah, springs come off, and you're in business. Now, the thing is, it can be very difficult actually getting them screws in there, because when you take your drill, you are going to want to drill it, trust me. When you take your drill goes in at an angle like this, and this thing ends up being not right. Yeah. But Warmoth, in their wisdom, I believe, let's just check this. Yeah, they've actually already drilled it for you. For the right size screws, of course, and we're coming back to those problems with screws again. So with the right size screws, those screws are going to go in straight. I've just checked it, and I can assure you it is pretty much straight. Not like the ones you might drill. So the moral is, if you buy a body like this, and they've done all that sort of work for you, it just makes everything really nice and simple to build. Some people say we're not building, we're assembling. I always relate to that in this way. Think about the things like this. If I go and buy some bricks, and I put these bricks together, did I assemble the house or did I build it? The luthiers will tell you I assembled it, which is a bit stupid. They'll tell you that this is an assembly job, or call it what you will, anything except, oh my God, he's doing what we do. Well, to be fair to luthiers, They do a lot more than I do. For sure they do. But then you've got to pay them to do it. So my experience, my own way of doing things is this. This guitar is going to be absolutely as good as you can buy by the time we've finished, to the specification that I wanted for my guitar. So that's all good, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that's what they do for you. They make it to your spec. And that's what I've got here. Neck to my spec, body to my spec, even a steel block to my spec. Everything I want. Yeah, I just want to get that out of the way because people do harp on about that. Okay, what I'm going to do now then is fit this claw. There'll be more we do in here later. I'm going to fit the claw and then we're going to fit this thing on, which is pretty easy really, once you've got the claw fitted. I'm going to do that now. Hold on. Now we are going to need a wire that goes through a little hole here into this cavity a bit later on, which is a grounding wire for the tremolo arm and in turn the strings. So that's got to be done, but I don't know how easy this is going to be for me to screw these in with you watching, but we shall see. It's all very simple really. Two screws, how hard does it have to be? Let's have a go. You want these to be as straight as you can get them, and that's what I was saying about warm-earth bodies and pre-drilled and all that stuff. It just saves a load of aggravation. You can see how they're going in. I wouldn't call it too difficult, would you? There we go. You want them pretty much how they should be, and they're going to follow those pre-drilled holes. Okay, well this will do for now. What I'm going to do is go flip the guitar over, we'll fit the tremolo and then come up with the springs on. Now it's not really too hard to do this, you just basically screw them in. Got a bit of dirt on this, but don't worry about it, it'll clean up a bit later. There you go. And there you have it. So, you're going to have to go down a bit further, those are. I'll do for now. You want a bit of this stuff at the back. Let me putting this on. So that it doesn't mark the back of the body. Actually, you're probably better with just one thickness of that. Okay, now we can turn it over, put it down. We just get one spring for now, actually off the centre, anything just to hold it in place. They're not tight enough, so let me whip them up. Okay, we've got one spring on, and I'm just going to flip it over just to make sure that this bridge is sitting as it should, which it is. Just put the arm in loose, just for now, so we can see how that fits, and you can put this stuff under the back like that. It's all very loose at the minute, but it's okay. I'll take that back off. And we can put some more springs. We can line everything up, you know, and adjust things a bit later. Now you can do what you like with these. A lot of guys tend to push them on like that. Others don't. Some will say that, oh, that's terrible. I've seen a lot of guys use them like this. So for me, that's how mine are going to go on. I'm just going to lower these down a little way. Like so. That's fine for now. There now. That wasn't so bad, was it? Got a tremolo actually fitted. There it is in the back. I screwed these up a little bit tighter because the trem was still a bit loose, but it's not bad for now. We can come back and do all that work later. One thing I did notice about this tremolo arm, the fender one that is that when you fit this, it's near the body when it's back. You see that? So as you push this in, it gets nearer and nearer. So I have a sneaky feeling. I mean, that's in now. That's pretty tight, if you want the truth. But I have a sneaky feeling that that's why Callahan extended this up a little bit. Of course, you could bend it up and then bend that flat a bit, things like that. I mean, it does fit. This one's going to be good. I'll probably bend it up a bit there and bend that down a bit there. It's a 2-minute job, so it doesn't worry me at all. Anyway, you can see the guitar's now coming along very nicely. Well, very nicely, yeah. What have we got next? Well, we've got all the electronics to do. We've got this front plate to fit. And then we come down to the strings and the rest of it. Well, oh my God, this is coming on quick. I haven't actually been on this for months on end, as you might think. In fact, up to now, I've probably spent, I don't know, 3 or 4 nights, because I'm training you. And if I weren't training you, I'd have this finished in one day, just one day. 9 o'clock till sort of 6 or 7 at night, and it'd be finished. It's that easy. But when you're doing what I'm doing here, it's much slower. So that's how life is. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, I mean, I've talked about this, we've done them. There's nowhere else to go except round the back. And when we get round the back, we've got another pile of important little micro reviews as we go. Because there's a lot of things you could do with this guitar as it stands at the moment, you know, from this point onwards. And indeed, we are going to go from this point onwards in a slightly different direction than where a regular fender is. Well, of course, there's no hole for the really annoying volume pot that normally goes there. It's very annoying to me. It might not be to you, but I did a sort of survey on the number of people that didn't like that pot where it was, and there was a lot of them. And that's all I can say. If you like the old-fashioned one, great. I don't. So you can make your own when you're doing this, and that's the great thing about this. At this point, it might be a nice time to actually just clean your guitar down and get all the stuff off that you've had on your hands. I mean, it's pretty clean on here, but yeah, it'd be nice to do that, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'm going to flip her over now, and we're going to start looking at the electronics and the various options that I've made, as I said, to make this guitar into what I want it to be. You can do yours as you want, of course. We've got another one of those little micro reviews, because this could be a good time to make sure that this surface is nice and clean. I mean, let's face it, we've been drilling, we've been doing all sorts of things to it. But we do want to keep it clean, and we do want to keep it really so it doesn't get damaged by, you know, stuff in the, like on here, this sort of thing. You need to keep it nice and pristine. And what better time to get your cloth out, give it a bit of a polish down. But I'm not just going to do just a polish. There's always more to it than that. I'm thinking of finishing polish, you know, the stuff that doesn't rub down, scratches and things like that. Just the stuff that you'd use every day on your guitar to sort of keep it nice, you know. And I've got a couple of 3 different polishes, and I thought we'd try them out just to see what's good, bad, or what's indifferent, or see if any of them are better than the others. That's a good, that's a plan. Yeah, and here they are. Random polishes from random shops. Well, actually, these 2 were from, what have I got here? This one was from Music Store Pro, local music store. This one was from Sound Effects. Yeah. And this one, actually I bought this one in America for $4 from some store. But this pump polish, one of the guys that comes watching my videos from time to time said, "Oh, Tony," because he's American, "Tony, you need one of those American pump polish from Gibson." So I did get one, and yeah, it's pretty good. But all three of these are under test. Dunlop 65, I say it again, Dario Protect Guitar Wax. This says step 2, so there's probably other steps, but let's not worry about that. And this one here, yeah, pump polish. So what I'm going to do is rub a little bit on in different places and let's see what we get. See if any's better than any of the other. Yeah, hold on. I must be getting mad. So let's start off with this Gibson pump polish. It's actually, it is, it's sort of liquidy, that is. You sort of splash it on all over, a bit like that stuff that some guy in England used to do a long time ago. And you just sort of rub it in like this. Let it dry a bit. I think we'll let it dry a minute now. You notice the cloths I've got, by the way. This is a big, fat, super cloth. Wow. That's going to really, yeah. Oh man, I can see my face in it. It's awesome. Yeah. Okay, well that's one. Let's take this Dario Protect Guitar Wax. It says, what does it say? Combines premium quality Brazilian carnauba and advanced chemistry to add a layer of protection. Well, I'm sure it does. Sort of. Let's move that out of the way. Let's get the second one going on this. Yeah, this one's all dried up inside. So I guess the idea is that, well, hold on. What's going on? You do get a little bit out of it. Okay, so there's the little bit with its carnauba wax. That's the next stage. Just doing little sections, by the way, so you can see what's really going on. And we rub that one in. We'll let that dry while we get the next one out. That's number 2 gone. And here's number 3. How exciting. Actually, this looks surprisingly similar in the, yeah, very similar. So let's take number 3 and put a little bit on. Here we go. Same thing again. Oh, I don't know. Maybe not the same thing again. What's that mean? Ah, there it is. Okay, a little bit of that. Put this one on. Now of the 3, this one's the thickest. I can see that right off. So the Dunlop 65 appears to be the thickest layered one. Now I've got the master cloth. Now it's been a good 5 minutes or so since we put that stuff on. I'm going to start polishing now with the master cloth. Yeah. Now as you can imagine, before we started, this surface was, well, perfect. Let's see if it's perfect when we've finished with this and see if I can tell any difference between those 3 spaces. Maybe, maybe not. I just might as well wipe down there with a matty. What do you think? Yeah. Now then. I hate to say this. It looks the same all over. So what have we got? We've got no price. We've got £7.50 for that one, the Dario, and the pump was $4. Now I'm not saying you can get it for $4 where you buy it from, but it was in clearance in I don't know, one of them huge American places. It was cheap. This one was about I think about £7 or £6.50. So it's either $8 or $4. And there it is. And what can't speak can't really lie. It is, you can see it there. It doesn't matter what we look at. It's just as shiny no matter where we go. Now you could say that, oh well, such and such a polish protects it for longer. But you know what, I'm not entirely convinced about that. They all feel identical. Maybe it's put a bit of carnauba wax on the surface. Maybe that. No other polish can clean and protect your instrument finish as well as Gibson. It says. You know the scary thing about this? They all say the same thing. But some of them are twice the price of that one. Okay, well, the little short micro review of the 3 polishes. It is a micro review. Which one's the best? They're all the same. So pay your money and then take your choice. So if you're a cheapskate like me, I want this one. Thank you. It's as good as any of them on there, in my opinion. Well, these others, well, they've got a nicer box and they've got the magic carnauba wax name, but apart from that. So I've done the cleaning now. We're ready to move on. At last. Well, now here we are around the back, looking at this big hole. I'm going to have to do something with that. And I've got 1 or 2 more bits and pieces that we could utilise in here. And I think what we'll do is run through those options that we could use. And there's sort of mini reviews as well, or micro reviews of these things that we could put in here that I've bought. And some of them are commonplace and some of them are less commonplace. And you can do a lot in here. So the choices that you make can really change the way the guitar sounds. Irrespective of pickups. I mean, this is half of where the sound comes from. So let me go and get a few of the options that we could put in this guitar. That some of which are going to go into the guitar, by the way. And we'll run through whys and wherefores. Sounds like a plan, especially if you're building one like I am. Oh man, we got a lot of stuff that we could use in this. Well, actually not just in this, but on this. I'll come to them later. But you know, when you look at a guitar, if you've had a Strat before, which you probably have. Maybe you haven't, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Yeah, when you've had a Strat before, sometimes things can be problematic, such as that volume knob. You know, the one you keep knocking and the volume on your guitar goes down. And let's face it, single coil pickups don't have such a high output. So if you knock 10% off, you're going down quite a way. And then you don't get the drive, and then you're this, and then you're that. You'll know what I mean. I'm sure of that. And yeah, I'm all for a good job getting a guitar that doesn't do that. And I've tried 1 or 2 answers on different things. On this guitar, I left off that all important to some people volume. So we're going to put the volume in the 2nd position here. And then we'll have this tone down here. Well, just a minute, I've only got 1 tone. Well, we'll think about that in a moment. But let's cover the things such as that volume knob. Let's assume we were going to fit the 3 in there and knock that volume knob as we play. Well, I found this thing. This is called an EVH Premium Quality Custom High Friction Pot 250k, which is fine for our single coil pickups. 250k, 500k if you're in humbuckers. There it is. It looks just like a standard pot. Yeah, so we pull this thing out. There's nothing special about it. Well, to look at, it's just like, well, in fact, it's like the one in there. Oops, get over there. It's like the one in there. It's almost actually identical. What's really great about it is it really turns really slow and it's harder to turn. That's good. And the reason it's good, if you're building one with 3 knobs on, put this where the top volume is, you're not going to knock it at all like you could. I think it's a really awesome piece of gear. Yeah. Which I'm probably going to utilise in this guitar. However, For now, we'll put it over there. Because I've got more. What can I say? Got loads of things in here. Now you've got the standard pot that we could use. You can see that turns a bit easier than the other one. And these are CTS pots. Yeah. Split shaft, typical Fender type of pots. In fact, they are Fender, I think. There it is, there's another one. Not much I can say about them, except that CTS pots are pretty good. And I've got two. So in that bottom one, we could use a CTS pot. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Oh my God, I've got another one here. This is made by CTS. And what I like about this one, this pot, it pulls in and out, which means that it switches. And you've got the regular pot thing there, and you've got the connections at the side, so you can sort of flip between two different settings. What I have in mind is to put this in the tone pot, pull it out for one tone on one pickup, and push it in for the tone control of another pickup. I haven't seen that done anywhere, although it probably has been. I guess everyone has. But this particular switch come tone pot is a particularly nice one. Now, I haven't got any part numbers. Oh, I have. Just bear with me a second. No, it says EP 5585 week 16 2017. Well, it might be an EP 5585, but it says CTS, and I got it off eBay, I think. Yeah, there'll probably be a picture up there somewhere of it, and you'll get the idea, as will be a closer picture of that one, and maybe even a regular CTS, but you can see them as you go. So this is going to go down there where I said. And what else? Well, the other things you have to use when you get down here inside this thing are capacitors. Now, you could fit any one of tens of thousands of different types of capacitors. This one is a 23.25 NF capacitor. The old type, it's probably going to have a picture up there again, and it's a Russian one that I happened to pick up, probably via Russia. Who knows. And then you've got a more standard thing here, which is, yeah, this is a 22, different type, probably a slightly different sound. You can use any one you want. You can get oil-filled paper capacitors and all sorts of things, and if you think it's going to make a massive difference, some people tell you it will, and some people tell you it won't. Well, me, slight difference. I don't use the tone pot much anyway, do you? Some people do. But for me, I'm going to use that one. Yeah, and we'll go from there. I've also got a jack for the jack plate. That's a Fender one. That'll be coming out anytime soon. And yeah, I've got a Fender switch as well. You've seen them, haven't you? You know, the regular five-way Fender five-way selector switch, which in the UK is a total complete rip-off at near enough £25 or $30 odd for that thing. And it's just a standard, looks like a, doesn't say which brand, but it's probably a CRL or something like that. Actually made in Mexico. Who knows where it's, which company makes it. Maybe Fender, maybe not. But in any case, I bought the Fender one. Well, here I am. Right, so it's a question of moving on to that wiring and making some decisions about the guitar and exactly what's going to go into that crevice in there, and how many knobs you put on it, and how many pots and things like that. I could actually drill the third one up here somewhere. There's plenty of space for it if I want to do that, so it could become more of a standard Strat with the knob moved down a little bit, or this way a little bit, or you get the idea. You can move it around. Then again, I might leave it as it is. And when you're deciding about what your Strat needs to be like, you've got loads of stuff on the internet about diagrams and how to use various pots and things like that. So you have to make some decisions. I was looking at this one here. This is off Seymour's site, but Seymour Duncan that is. But the fact is that it's a pretty standard layout, so you can use it on your setup if you're making a standard layout, that is. This one's 3 single coils, 1 volume, 2 tones and 5-way blades. So that's really a standard Strat. So I could drill the hole and move it to a standard Strat. But then I've got this other one here. It says here 3 single coils, 1 volume, 1 tone and 5-way blade. Well, that's actually what I've got, and I could just put this on there just willy-nilly quite easily, and away you go. It's going to work first go. Yeah, that's a plan. Now, one of the things that I found was a new CTS pot that is push-pull, and it's nice and easy to wire. Indeed, I have it here. And the thing about this CTS pot, it'll fit in there very nicely. What I was thinking about, I started drawing little diagrams as you do. It's all bad, that is. And one of the things I could do was I could do a tone switch that's a master tone, okay? But I can have it with 2 different capacitors. So I can have 1 tone with it in and a different one with it out. That could be a good choice. So you've got all these extra tone choices. Admittedly, there's only 1 tone, and you know, that's a master one for all the pickups. But oh hey, I'm not really worried about that. I don't use tones that much, but I might have more of a reason to do that with a switch like this. So that's an option. But there's another option as well. I had this other idea. One of the things Fender did, and other people have done as well, is to wire your guitar in such a way that the pickups have either got a tone switch in circuit or a tone switch completely out of circuit. Now, using something like this one here, this 3 single coils, 1 volume, 1 tone, and modifying that a little bit so that it ends up being what I call bright switch, which means that the tone is in circuit or out. Well, the tone and volume, I believe. It could be quite interesting. Basically, you end up with these pickups going straight out to the amp, so they're more toppy, they're more everything. There's more output. There's more of everything. More me, as some people might say. So that's another option. It all gets a bit, oh, what should I do now type of thing. That's the great thing about making a Strat that's your own design, or a design along what you want as opposed to what you have to buy off a shelf. And of course, there's that 5-way switch. You might fit a 3-way switch. Well, you might. And as well as having the standard Fender switch that they call 5-way selector switch, they have a super switch as well, so you can wire more things in and out. I didn't want to go that far. I just wanted to be pretty standard on the switch. You know, I like this one or this one and nothing in between. That's another story. Okay, well, ultimately, it hasn't really been that hard to do, to come up with my own thing. I'm going to stick to pretty standard stuff, which is what I intended to do in the first place. So as far as the premium quality custom high friction pot goes, actually I'm not going to fit that because this is so far away from where the problem usually is that this isn't necessary. I'll use a standard, this is a standard 250k CTS pot. Pretty standard, pretty common, available everywhere. It's a good option. So we can get rid of this one, and even though it's a sort of quick view of it, very nice pot, would work very nice, especially if you get that trouble. So that's out of the equation for now. And in the tone pot, I'm going to use this CTS again, the switched pot, and I've got a diagram down here. maybe put a lot of this up on screen as we do it. Yeah, sort of showing you the differences. And I've done a few scribblings down here on this sheet of what we're going to actually wire in. So it should all be good. And I'm going to go with the nothing or everything mode. Probably. I might change that, but that's where we're at now. So what we're going to do is start getting some of this stuff in place. Yeah. So to just finish up on the top here, I'm going to take this fender part, and I've got actually a jack here. Let me just pull that out because I like to show this. It's a pretty standard jack except for one thing. And I always like things to be right, you know, when you're doing this sort of stuff. This jack's actually gold plated on the end. Yeah, all very nice. So what we're going to do is screw that in there, and we're going to fit that to the guitar, and then the top's out the way near enough except for a few little screws and bits and pieces. So I'm going to fit this now, and then we'll show you how to fit it there. It's all very easy really. There's a few things on this, it's all pretty simple really. You just screw that in there, put the nut on the outside and tighten up. But I did put a shake-proof washer on the inside, you know, one of them knurled type of things that can bite on in the inside, so that this thing doesn't come loose, because that's a common problem with Fender connectors. They come loose. And always use a decent wrench to get in there and really tighten this up. So that's never going to come off. And there it is. There's little else to talk about this except to say that it does come with 2 screws for screwing in the top, which I aren't going to use. I'm going to use that other set because I know those are all exactly the same, and you get variances in these and stuff like that I talked about earlier. So that's ready now to slip in there, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Drill 2 holes and away we go. So let's go and do that now. Now then, what I tend to do with this is to take this thing, just sit it in loose and move it down and let it flip back a bit. Don't go too far because you can have all this sort of problem. So I tend to pull it down and let it just flip back a little bit, and it just flips back to where it's good, if you know what I mean. It'll just feel right, but you do want to leave that bit either side. Of course, what you got to do is drill these holes, and you've got to drill them where they should be. Now that's not always so easy if you've never done this before, and it can be a bit frightening really if you if you're going to get it wrong, because you could end up with lots of holes. So there's a number of ways you could do this. You could actually lift this off, put some masking tape underneath, and then slide this back in, so that when the drill gets in there it doesn't go all over the place. That's one way of doing things, but I just tend to do it just straight off because I've had a bit of practice. So I'm going to go and do that now. Let's just drill these 2 holes. You notice on the drill I've got it set up so that it only goes in so far, and all the rest of it, it's central. You want it really central. And through you go. That's one. Now the other one, again you've got to get it central. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? So we just lift this off and clear away. Now there's one in place, and you can see that the actual hole for the other one was exactly central. And that's what you need to get. So if you want to practice on a separate piece of wood or something, that could be good. And there's a quick shot of the thing in place. It looks pretty right to me, that does. Okay, I'm going to go and fit this switch now. This 5-way switch. It's going to go down in there, and there are the 2 screw holes, and we'll use those gold ones that I had from the pickup screws. There's 2 over, so you get 8 per set, and 2 of them are going to hold this in place. So let me go and do that now, and then we can have a look. Now when I fit this switch, it could fit either way round, but I tend to fit it that way around. I don't know why, it's just the way it is. And there it is in place. What you don't want to do is to start trying to over tighten the screws from the other side, because they'll sink into the body, and hold them tight enough to hold the thing in place, and not really any more than that. That's a quick shot of the switch. Okay. Well, what we're going to do next is we're going to fit these pots inside of here. There's a couple of things you've got to do as you go. So we'll zoom in, have a quick look at the pots, and then decide how we're going to fit them. There's a few ways. Now there are a number of ways that you could fit these. This one, the CTS, will be going in here. Now you could fit it that way round, or you could fit it this way round, which is the more common way, that facing down towards this other one. So this one here, this other one, would go in there like so. Well, it will when it's got everything together. Now it leaves them things rather close together, but that's not really much of a problem. They will fit in there and they will work, and so on and so forth. You might want to angle them out a little bit. I don't know. It depends what mood I'm in, but let me go and fit them now, and then you can have a look at what I did. Now, I do want to cover something where I made a mistake. I'm just as prone to you as making mistakes. That's why I'm making this video, to show you what not to do. On the CTS switch pot, this one, it fits okay, but you're not able to fit any washers underneath, because this particular top, with this being a rear root, probably okay for you. It's all relative whether you're rear root or whether you're using a scratch plate. But when it's a rear root, if you look at this hole here, you can see that it's quite deep. This wood on the top is actually quite thick. I'd say it's about 3/8 of an inch on this guitar. So this one's entirely my own mistake, you might like to know. Oh my God, we all get things wrong. But you can buy these pots with what's called a short shaft or a long shaft. And the long shaft ones are usually fitted in Gibsons and things like that. But you can get 250k CTS long shaft pots with a split shaft at the top. And I'm going to have to go and order one of those now. I only need one for this guitar, remember. And I also checked the other unit over here, this thing, and that's also a short pot. If you look carefully, you'll see that that's also quite short. So they might sell that in long shaft mode, but I don't know about that. Anyway, I'm not going to use it, so I'm just going to get a long shaft one of these, and then we'll be fitting that as soon as it arrives. It just shows you that these sort of things can hold you back a little bit from where you need to be. You know, if you're doing a build, I could have had this build finished by tomorrow, but now I can't. I've got to wait for spares again. Okay, there's one last thing I want to show you regarding that pot for the volume and the shaft lengths. So I'm just going to go in close so you can get a little quick view of the longer shaft and the shorter shaft. And without going into any great depths, you can see straight off that the one on the right has the longer shaft. I think this one's 20 millimeters, but they do them at 24 and 25 as well, really, which I thought was too long. Okay, well, before we go too much further, you can see here the wires that are coming in from the pickups. We've got the jack socket to wire, and we've got this switched tone, which it will be, or a tone bypass, one or the other, or both. Actually, it's going to be both. And we've got this pot to fit. Now the thing is, as we start to do this, we've got all this copper around the edges, and what you need to do really is take a little bit of this masking tape and just put it around the edge down here where you could have wires that just touch. Just put a little bit around there, a little bit over here. You get the idea. Bit across the bottom there, but not where the pot's actually going to sit. Oh, just one thing to note. You notice with the pickups that these wires, actually, even when I fit this, are probably a little bit too short. They just don't quite make it. So I've got to extend these wires. So Klein pickups, Mr. Klein pickups, you need to extend your wires maybe another inch or so, a bit longer, particularly on the grounds. I thought that was a bit painful. But there you go. We'll do that presently when we get to the soldering. Okay, it's pretty easy to see that I've put a few bits on there, and maybe you can see it round here. There's a little bit in front of this particular switch, which was fitted earlier. And when you're fitting these things, you really want to have that starred washer underneath, if you can do that, like so. And then we just fit it through the hole. Now I'm going to have mine sort of this way because, well, maybe that way, because I don't have a lot of spare wire. In fact, I hardly have any. Yeah, what a pain. So just hold that in place, put on the washer, and put your nut on. And you're going to find it's just about, for this thickness of body, just about perfect, as you can see. And always remember, tighten these up by holding the thing underneath with a decent wrench. And don't overdo it. It's about the same on both. And there's a quick shot with the volume and the tone come switch. And the 5-way in place. And obviously the jack socket. All very simple. Yeah. Now one of the biggest problems that guys get, I have them sending me little texts and things like that all the time, all relates to the wiring and soldering, or soldering as they say in America. It's soldering, right? Let's get that right. Yeah, you Americans. Anyway, I'll call it soldering so you can laugh as much as you want. But the thing is, it's one of the biggest shortcomings of building a guitar or repairing a guitar. It's the soldering. And I just thought I'd give you a little bit of a rundown on how easy it is. If you've got the right stuff, it's dead easy. If you've got the wrong stuff, it's a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is get a bit of a plate on here and we'll do a bit of soldering, just to show you how easy it is. And then I'll go and do the soldering on that thing. Oh. Actually, you can think of this as almost like a mini review or a micro review on how to solder. Well, not really, but I'll call it that. Okay, well, I'll just put this plate here so we don't screw up the surface of the table. Well, what do you need to solder? Well, you need some wire. I've got this this sort of coated wire that it's like the old Fender wiring, or sort of. You should be able to pull this back like so. You see that? And then you can just solder accordingly. Let's move that out of the way. The other things you need, of course, is you need a bit of solder. Now there are a number of types of solder. You can get it with flux, without flux, with lead, without lead, all sorts of things, all different temperatures as well that it melts at. I mean, I just get the generic simple stuff that's got a bit of flux in it, and yeah, and I get it leaded as well because the non-lead actually melts at a higher temperature, which is a bit of a pain sometimes. So you want the thing to melt easy enough. Well, as well as that, you might need at some stage some of this. This is like almost like a sort of copper ribbon that you use for desoldering. So if you put too much solder on, you can get a bit off with that. And if you don't have any, it's real fun sometimes trying to get the solder back off when you put too much on. And lastly, of course, we need a soldering iron. And you can see this one here. It says C15 230 volt Antex. I don't know what power it is, but it's not very powerful. Right, you can see it's a small tip and it doesn't have huge amounts of heat. Now, I hate to say this, but sometimes you do need huge amounts of heat, and if you're going to do that, you'd get the much bigger gun than this. There's some instant powered ones that are very high powered. Now, the problem with those, if you use one of those, you can actually screw whatever it is you're trying to solder. So you could actually do the pot in and things like that, or the capacitor. So because they get very hot. So use with caution those, but this is the one that we're going to use today. And yeah, it's simple. Now this can be all pretty boring really if you know how to solder, but if you don't, it's really useful. Now this type of wire, as I said, it just pulls back off the centerpiece, and I've done that on both of them. So what we'd really want to do is to maybe join that like so. That's easy enough, isn't it? I've got my soldering iron here when it gets hot enough. You can see it's absolutely hot enough. Yeah. Let's turn this round a bit so you can see it maybe better. Yeah, so there's the iron with what to solder on. If I just dab it on, literally, and make sure those two pieces are hot. Well, you have it sort of joined pretty instantly. What you really want to do is to get that joint as nice as you can, and sometimes it's useful to have something that can hold these two pieces while you just solder it together. Yeah, very useful. So taking a close look at that, you can see that I've got all the iron as well here. You can see that it's pretty much all the way round, and it's not particularly that dull. If it's very dull, it means that it's probably going to be a dry joint, but if you get a nice shiny surface on it, then it's probably okay. Now when you're joining wire like this, often you could take this outer coating or this insulator and push it back over, but I tend to use a thing that's like a shrink wrap. You'll see it on the internet. You just get some shrink wrap just about this size, and you get a heat gun on it, and it basically seals that off from shorting out with anything else. And it's a real strong connection once you've got your wiring as it should be. So that's a very simple introduction to soldering. I don't mean to be an expert in showing you that. I just wanted to sort of give you some idea. Yes, let's imagine we're going to solder that wire there onto this pot here. Well, you don't just sort of push it through and solder it like some people do. You don't want to do that. Make sure that you have a sort of physical sort of thing like that. If you can see that. And then sort of pull this back and bend it over so that you need to have it where you can see what I mean. And bend that round with your pliers. Keep this back. Bend that round with your pliers until it doesn't come off without solder, and then you can solder it in place. Now lastly, the issue of desoldering with that sort of desoldering wick, I think that's what they call it. You just basically put it on there, get everything hot, and you'll see the solder sort of flows off the joint. And there you go. Solder gets off onto the wick and they fall apart. Well, there you go. It's just an introduction to soldering. Of course, I'm no expert any more than you are. Well, maybe a bit more practice. Get your two wires and solder them on a plate or something. Yeah, that's a good idea, like I did. Yeah, solder. Very confusing to most, but actually in reality pretty simple. Make sure you've got that desoldering wick, because that does make a difference, and you know, when you get problems. So what I'm going to do now is to flip this around, have a look at these three wires. I think I'll take all the earth wires and join them into one, and then join the one onto that pot. That sounds like a plan, and that gets the start of the grounding out of the way. Okay, so I've soldered the new wire, the extended wire, to these three grounds coming off the pickups. It all works fine like that, no problem. And I've put a bit of this shrink wrap. You can see there it's not been shrunk. Now you can shrink it with either a heat gun or a great big fat soldering iron like I've got. And I tend to use the great big fat soldering iron because I don't really want to get too much heat down in there, but I do want to shrink that, so I'm just going to go and do that. It's all pretty easy. You just get it warm, yeah, when it's warm, you just run it over the heat shrink. Let's see if we can do that. And you'll see it will shrink down quite dramatically once you start getting the heat on it, like so. It's not absolutely the best way of doing things, but it does definitely work. As you can see, it's shrunk. Yeah. Now the next thing we've got to do is to sort of cut this shielding so we can solder on there. Very simple, really. So what you want to do is just pull it back like so and get it ready to stick on there, which is where it's going to end up. And then we're going to run the other wire down here to the ground, which, by the way, is this one. You can see that that fits on the inner thing. We'll get to it later. So let's solder this on, and I'm going to use that, again, that great big soldering iron to get plenty of solder on this, and then get this on here like so, and then we can take some other grounds off as we need them. Notice that also here I've bent over this third connector onto the ground, and I'm going to be soldering that in place too. Another little trick I do is to take that little thin solder wire and wrap it around like this, so you've got a big fat solder wire to work with. It always helps when you've got to put a lot of solder on. Notice that I've also cleaned the surface with a little bit of sandpaper. So again, a fair bit of solder on there, because we might want to stick all the wires on. Well, we will do. And getting this joint here is important. I'm now going to run this ground wire to here and solder it in place. Now hopefully you can see what I mean by a mechanical connection. It's physically fastened on there, even without solder. Very important. And there's the soldered connection. You can see, very shiny. Now you also need a wire that comes off this ground that goes through into this cavity, and again on a Warmoth body it's pre-drilled, you might have to drill it, and it solders just sort of there. So that's a ground from there to there. Now when you're soldering up here, you want to first of all clean off that surface so that you've got a nice bare metal surface, and yeah, put a decent blob of solder on. And you're going to need, again, probably a big iron for that, because this acts as a heat sink and takes the heat away. So I'm going to go and do that now. Now you can see my solder joint is very, very shiny. I also put a fair amount on this as well, just to make sure it isn't going to come off at any time. Now what I'm going to do is take the other end and put that down on there. There's a quick shot of the joint. Now next thing we need to do is to take this centre one here and run it down to the one down on the jack, which is the other connection. Your connection should look like that. Now in the end, for the capacitor, I decided to use this old-fashioned Fender one. It's a replica. It's 0.1 microfarads, and yeah, it's going in a special place in there, and I'll show you all that after, and there'll be a circuit diagram of what I did later, so you can download it. Whoa! I completed the wiring actually, because it would have taken me hours on end to actually solder each wire and show you how to do it. I mean, it gets out of hand. So what I did do is I've got a diagram that you can download from, hopefully down there, maybe, or not. If it's not there, go to TonyMckenzie.com and send me a text and I'll send you one. Easy answer. But there it is, basically completed. There's a lot in it, and it's a bit awkward to do, especially with that little CTS switch, push switch. What I ended up in the end doing was to have this 0.1 Fender capacitor, or nothing. So one's a straight link through that does nothing, and the other one is with that capacitor on. So out, flat out, out for flat out. That's a good phrase. and in the old-fashioned 0.1, so I can take my pick really. I hardly ever use a capacitor anyway, so you know the tone, but it's there if I want it, and that was what I aimed to do. So the wiring's now basically complete. All it requires is a bit of testing, which I'm going to do now, and I'll be back. If there's any mods, I'll do them and update them on the diagram. But I think it's all going to be good. Well, success. Works as I wanted it to, which is pretty incredible really. You've got either the no tone and straight out, or you've got that Fender cap, and yeah, it all works perfect. I didn't have to mod anything, so the diagram will be worth looking at. I didn't see one on the internet exactly the same, so I just did a few mods. Yeah, call it the Mckenzie mod. That should be good. Anyway, I'm going to screw the back on, not with these screws, but with the good screws, and we'll move on from there. It's all getting nice. Oh, I put the end on as well. I've got a cream one, and in case I didn't mention it, I actually changed out the white for cream because I think it suits the colouring better. So get it right first time, so you haven't got to screw them all apart again and change the covers. Silly me. As far as aesthetics of the guitar are concerned, there isn't really much left, is there? I mean, we've got all the necessary bits on, but we've got these two pots here, and I was thinking, you know the sort of thing, regular sort of pot. Take the tone pot. There it is. Fit it on there. All looks nice. It does look nice actually. I might end up with that, but one of the things I did was I went on to that Freebay again and bought what I thought would be a good idea. Some of these wooden cut. Oh, let me take a picture and I'll put it up there so you can see them. They're all very nice. Very nice indeed. Zebra wood in this case, but you could get ebony and you could get a few different types, maple and so on and so forth to suit your guitar. Sounds like a plan. But of course, like all good plans, thanks to those characters who sell products on Freebay, or eBay you might call it, I didn't get what I ordered. Yeah, sure enough, I got 3 control knobs, zebra wood, great. But take another look up there. Can you spot the mistake? Well, don't worry, I'm going to tell you. Yeah, this one here has got black numbers on it, and the other two's got white numbers. These people, honestly, they have no clue, do they? It's more trouble to send this junk back than it is to get the right ones in the first place that you've paid for. Good money. If you're like me, I'm going to stop using them people and I'm going to talk about them every time. So when you see these on eBay, yeah, don't buy them. Don't waste your time. You faff you around. Anyway, back to the knobs. Let's see how these would look. You know, I don't think they look bad when they actually, I haven't pressed it on, but you get the idea. And you put the other one on. Let's take a look. You put them about there. And they just push on. I don't think they look too bad actually. But I don't know. It's deviating away from that standard that I originally wanted to get. And although I hate to say it, these plastic ones, no, they do have an appeal. They do. They have an appeal that's similar to this appeal. I mean, these knobs are very similar. They're a bit smaller as well. That's another thing I noticed. I don't know if you can see that. Let me put a picture up there. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure about the wooden ones. Let's move them aside for now. Let's move the plastic ones aside, because I also went further down, digging down on eBay again, looking for other types of knobs, and I've got a few. So once again, this is a sort of micro review. Let me go get the others, and you'll see what I mean and why I'm not using them. Oh, hey, listen, I'm not doing things by halves here. I've got some black ones, because I thought black might work. Well, actually, at the time, I didn't really know. So we get one of these black ones out. Metal. It's heavy metal. Actually, they do look. They have the place. Let's move that one away. We got some cream ones. Let's get one of them out as well. And of course, we've got gold ones. So I get one of each out. So there's no cheating, right? Well, there they are. They all look reasonable. Very heavy. I wanted to sort of get them sort of new Fender ones and Gibson ones, yeah. Yeah, on the face of it, they do look pretty cool, you know. They're like an alloy with an insert, so you just push them on. Oh, you don't push them on, you tighten them in. Okay, fair enough. And you've got a black one. Now we could put these on the guitar, no problem. But what's it like? I'm not going to push that all the way on. It's too much trouble. You've got to get it back off. Well, no, I don't think that one works, do you? Let's try the black one. Well, that definitely won't work. And some of you will say, well, it goes with a nut. Oh, I don't think so. And then we got this this tone one. We'll call it a tone one. This cream. And you know, I'm not even sure that'd work. I mean, it's not bad, but this one's been knocked a bit as well. If you see that, if you can see the edges, it's been knocked. That's how it came to me, so them are out as well. Let's come back to them wooden ones just while we're down here. Yeah, they don't look too bad. They'd be pretty reasonable when they're on, but I think they're the wrong colour. That's why I don't think I'm going to be using them. I'm afraid it's probably going to be, as I said earlier, standard pots, because they suit it. They match the colours and all the stuff. So we're going to do that. Yeah, you knew it was going to happen. So unless you've got some real want to go to those other types of knobs, these cheap semi-cream ones, which are supposed to be aged and they're not, well, for me on this guitar they work. They feel right, they sound right. And of course you've got that binding round the edge that just sets it off. So that's a little bit of a rundown of some of the various knobs, and there's a lot of them out there, that I've tried from eBay. And I ended up with the standard ones, so go figure. And there's a quick shot of them in situ. Yeah, works well. Yeah, it all looks good. Well, that's the lowdown on the knobs. And my God, did I spend some money faffing around with them? Don't waste your time. Just fit the regular plastic ones on. They look great. They sound great. What they do when you turn them, that's the thing. And there's not much else to say really. Don't faff around. You just make your guitar look crap. This way, it looks really nice. It's just the right thing to do. So that was a little micro review of knobs, and these, 10 out of 10, even though they're a bit pricey. The others, 3 out of 10. And as for the wooden ones, none out of 10, because they didn't even supply 3 matching ones. Yeah.